The most famous Japanese samurai movies. Miyamoto Musashi 4 of 5, The Duel at Ichijoji 1965. Musashi Nakamura Kinosuke invited his childhood friend Matahachi Kimura Isao to join the Battle of Sekigahara on the side of Toyotomi, but was defeated. Matahachi, who was hidden by Akimi, Okasatomi, and Oko Kajiramachiyo, who lived in the mountains, became obsessed with Oko and suddenly disappeared before Musashi's eyes. When Musashi returned to his hometown in despair, he was arrested as a remnant of the Toyotomi side and was searched rigorously by Himeji official Aoki Tanzeman Hanazawa Takoi, and Matahachi's mother Asuji, Nana Wachiko, who hated Musashi because Matahachi does not coming back to home. The monk Takoin, Makuni Rentaro, and Matahachi's fiancé Atsuiri Wakaba, called out to the wild Musashi. Musashi was sent to Himeji Castle by the teachings of the monk Takoin, and he was imprisoned in a dark storehouse, and he was forced to read numerous books for 3 years. After leaving the castle, Musashi reunites with Atsuo for the first time in 3 years. His personality has changed, and he has gained wisdom. He says goodbye to Atsuo and heads for Kyoto. A year later, Musashi defeats the second head of the prestigious Yoshioka Dojo, Yoshioka Seijuro, Shinjiro, but is targeted by Seijuro's younger brother Denshichiro, Hiramakijiro, as his enemy, and his whereabouts are investigated by all the disciples of the Yoshioka Dojo. They are not the only ones searching for Musashi. Akimi, who is being pursued by Sasaki Kajiro, Takakura Ken, Asuji Granny, Atsuo, who is bedridden, and Naoki Tanzeman's son, Jotaro Takeuchi Mitsuru, are also searching for Musashi's whereabouts. One day, after meeting Hanami Kotsu, Senda Kurenari, Musashi began living in Kotsu's mansion. On his way to the Ojai brothel at Kotsu's invitation, he was presented with a challenge by Denshichiro. Real Kotsu was an artist who lived in the early Edo period, and many people know him. The location of the fight was the national treasure, Sanju Seingendo Hall of Rinjia-in Temple in Kyoto. The more Denshichiro heard from his brother Seijuro and his disciple Hayashi Hikajiro, Kawasaki Choichiro, that Musashi was not an easy opponent to defeat. The more he did not want to be seen as weak, so he put up a bravado, saying that he could beat Musashi on his own and refused to acknowledge Musashi's strength. He then excommunicated any disciple who disagreed with his policy. Of the excommunicated, Hayashi Hikajiro was the one who continued to play an active role in the film until the end. Now, after leaving the brothel, Musashi goes to a restaurant that serves food and alcohol to get new straw sandals for the fight, and has them made by them for him. At that moment, he meets a Kamuzo, a Buddhist monk, wearing a straw hat at the entrance, who is wiping a shakuha cheap bamboo flute for money. This man is Jotaro's father, Aoki Tanzeman, a Himeji official who was persistently pursuing Musashi after Musashi was defeated by the Tokugawa side in the Battle of Sekigahara, claiming to be a remnant of the Toyotomi clan. According to the owner of the restaurant, he quit his job as a monk 3 or 4 years ago and became a Kamuzo. Musashi soon realizes that Tanzeman is Jotaro's father. In the original story, there is no explanation as to why he quit his job as a Himeji official and took on a life of a beggar. But perhaps he realized that rather than working under the powerful people of the time as an official of the Tokugawa or Toyotomi clan, and instead relying on no one like Musashi, he should simply seek his own path. I think that such qualities are also reflected in Jotaro's attitude of looking up to Musashi as his master. There is an anecdote that this film was the first time that permission was granted to film at Sanju Seijendo as a night location. It is significant that this night fight was held at Sanju Seijendo for the first time in Japan, because this building is the national treasure, which was built in 1164. This building was also used in Toya's Seven Oaths as the scene where Azuma Chiayanosuke and Chihiro Shinobu fight, without knowing who is friend or foe. When I first saw this film, I thought I had seen this building before, so I was very surprised to see that it was Sanju Seijendo. Here, in the snow, Musashi faced off against Denshichiro. Denshichiro had told his disciples not to help, but his two disciples had gotten there first and were hiding under the Sanju Seijendo hallway. They attacked Musashi, who was standing above, and Denshichiro attacked at the same time, but the three were cut down almost at the same time. There were 30-40 disciples around, but Musashi quickly escaped and returned to the red light district. However, Musashi, sensing danger, received information that many samurai from the Yoshioka Dojo were waiting at the main gate of the red light district, and decided to stay there for the night. Yoshinoteru Iwasaki Kaneko watched Musashi's behavior, and gave him advice. When asked why he was acting like that, he replied that it was to avoid appearing careless. Looking at his behavior and the look in his eyes, he seemed like someone who could be killed at any moment. How could someone fight a large number of samurai like that when, if many of Yoshioka's disciples were to attack Musashi now, they would kill in an instant? I feel sorry for you. Musashi immediately asked why she thought she was an inexperienced martial artist and would be killed at any moment. I played the biwa for Musashi, but he may not have been able to distinguish the subtle colors of the sound. She asked how the four strings could produce such a wide variety of tones, and to make it easier to understand, she split the biwa in half horizontally to show its structure, and explained that the various tones come from the horizontal pieces below the strings. Moreover, the horizontal pieces are attached to the body of the biwa in a relaxed manner, with a wave of intonation, to produce a change in sound. She explained that this is what supports the body of the biwa. As you all can see, the changes in the tone of the biwa are due to the structure that produces such tones. It is the same in martial arts, and if the mind and body are always tense, one will not be able to respond to changes in the opponent. So she explained that it was important for Musashi to acquire more flexible behavior in his daily life. Unlike at first, Musashi began to listen silently, but it would be good if he could understand everything here, but it will take time to understand this logic. However, there is nothing negative about it. The next day, Musashi stayed at Yoshinotei's mansion and met Jotaro, who was entering from the back. Musashi has Jotaro climb over the high fence at the back of the Yoshioka Dojo, where many of the disciples are waiting outside the only open main gate of the red light district. At that moment, he hears the sound of a shakuhachi, and Musashi is convinced that it is Aoki Tanziman, so he instructs Jotaro to follow the person playing the shakuhachi. Musashi asks Jotaro where they will meet, to which he replies, "I'll look for the shakuhachi player too. If you do that, I'll meet Jotaro again," to which Jotaro replies, "I understand," and leaves with relief. Immediately after that, Musashi leaves the only open main gate, and the disciples close it, preventing Musashi from returning to the red light district. Musashi asks the disciples why they don't go through the formal procedures for a duel like Seijuro and Denshichiro, but the angry representative of the Yoshioka disciples, Otakuroba Satoke says that he doesn't mind a secret attack because it's revenge for his senior disciple. Then someone calls out, "Wait," the voice was Sasaki Kojiro, to Kakuraken. Kojiro advised Musashi and Yoshioka disciples that it would be disgraceful for a samurai to fight in such a place, so they should choose a place and time where they would not cause any trouble to anyone. Both sides agreed, and they parted ways, promising to fight the day after tomorrow at the hour of 3 to 5 in the morning at Ichijoji Sagarimatsu, with Kojiro in attendance, under the responsibility of ensuring that Musashi does not run away. It was then decided that Jinjiro Nishimura Yuji, the only son of Mibujin Zeman Yamagata Isao, would be the nominal bearer. A crowd gathered in response to the notice, and Isuji Granny said that this was a battle to mourn her son Matahachi, and the misunderstanding about Musashi had not yet been resolved. Musashi was pouring cold water over his head to purify himself. Hikajiro, whose disciples had been excommunicated, asked Musashi why he was killing so many people and what his purpose was. Musashi replied that you should ask his sword, and seeing that being slandered before the fight would be a negative, did not engage Hikajiro. Then, on his way to Ichijoji, Musashi meets Atsuo, who is weakened by illness. Atsuo's straightforward attitude that she would not be alive if Musashi were to lose the match made Musashi share her joys and sorrows as a human being. Having arrived at Sagaramatsu before Yoshioka's disciples, Musashi draws a diagram to confirm the location of the upcoming battle from a spot where he can see the pine tree below. As you may know, you may have had the experience of remembering plans and strategies by writing them down on paper. But Musashi plans his strategy by observing them from the rooftop of a building. Then, 73 disciples wait equally on the road that splits into 3, and disciples climbs a pine tree, confirming that 2 of them are holding guns and 1 is holding a bow and arrow. He wraps the plan he has written on a white towel, puts it on his headband, puts 2 shuriken into the headband, says that if he doesn't kill them, he will be killed, and runs toward the descending pine tree, throwing shuriken at the 2 gunmen along the way and succeeding. Now begins Kinosuke's once-in-a-lifetime big fight. Musashi stabs Jinjiro, who is placed under the pine tree as a figurehead, and his father, Jin's-emon, in the back with his sword. After that, Musashi executes the plan by going along the rice field ridge, to make it as close to one-on-one as possible with the enemy. The location for this 73 versus 1 duel scene was chosen to be Hachimachida in Shiga Prefecture, which is similar in topography to the descending pine tree at the time the duel actually took place. The area was a marshland where the boots were completely covered in mud, and filming took place over a month from October to November. Apparently, everyone worked hard, covered in mud. In the movie, Kinosuke and Yoshioka's disciples fought on thin ice, unable to run even if they wanted to, and it was a very powerful scene. Among them, I will never forget the scene where Hikajiro, who was excommunicated, chases after Musashi, unable to forgive his cold-heartedness for killing a child. If you have to choose between good and evil, you could say that Musashi was evil, but when your life is at stake, you can't expect others to evaluate you later. Musashi's feelings of being forced to inflict injury on Hikajiro despite telling him not come are conveyed in the scenes that unfold. Along he walks on thin ice, making them all the crueler. That it made me feel his impatience. Hikajiro's eyes were cut and he became blind. This scene, like the duel scene in the rain between the Ronin and the Seven Samurai in Seven Samurai movie, is a fight scene that will remain in the history of cinema. The Ichijoji Duel was the only part in the film that was in black and white, but it was cleverly transferred from color to black and white, and the effect is clear in the brutality of the fight on the thin ice of the rice paddy. After the duel, Yoshioka's disciples chasing Musashi are not shown, but Musashi is shown lying on his back in the filed color of autumn leaves, covered in blood and breath heavily. The grass where Musashi was lying is the color of autumn leaves, and the color changes from black and white to a lustrous color in an instant, and the sound of sutras is playing. This scene has the same effect as the sutra that plays when the murderer Mikuni Rentaro commits suicide by jumping into the sea in the final scene of Hunger Straits, also directed by Uchida Tomu. The eeriness of the sutra is fully conveyed. In this film, it seems to represent the emptiness in the heart after the murder that inevitably occurs in the process of ascending to great heights. Climbing to great heights means improving your sword skills so that no one can beat you. The screen changes completely, and Musashi's face has a thick beard. He seems to have been allowed to stay at a temple on Mount Hiei, where he stayed for several months and carved a cannon statue. At the temple, the sounds of many people chanting sutras were playing. A monk saw Amura sound a suk, and 5 warrior monks appeared and announced that they were the head priest of Inryakuji Temple. They had come to plead that those who fled with resentment would not be allowed to hide, much less those who were engaged in adultery and fighting, should leave the mountain immediately. Musashi had previously asked about his stay and received permission, but the high priest said that he had heard that he was the only samurai who had fought the Yoshioka side, but after that, his bad reputation had spread, and it was decided that he could not be hidden on this mountain, and ordered him to leave again. The high priest and warrior monks said that the voice was from heaven, but Musashi denied that he had done anything against heaven. The high priest spoke his ultimate opinion, asking why he had even killed a child. When Musashi gave no reply, the high priest continued to attack, calling him a heretic and saying that he was not still human, and Musashi's body began to tremble. The monk shouted at him, yelling that he should leave the mountain as soon as possible. After they left, Musashi told himself, even if he's a child, he's still a general in name. Why? Is it wrong to kill a general? I have no regrets. Please look forward to the final film, the Battle of Ganryu Island.